Hi, thanks for joining us on Inside Curtin. I'm Michelle. In this episode, we catch up with the Fremantle Dockers as they take our international students through the moves of AFL. Check out some of the initiatives to increase safety on campus, see members of the Hockey Roos getting help from Curtin students and academics, and hear from a group of final year students on their thoughts about how the student experience at Curtin can be improved. Coming to Australia to study is a major time in the lives of the international students at Curtin, so we thought we'd give them a chance to learn more about our local customs and culture. What better way than through our national game?
Today is a really important event, which is an alliance between Curtin University and the Fremantle Dockers, giving international students the quintessential Australian experience of trying AFL, maybe for the first time.
Yeah, so the Fremantle Dockers are here to help with the Curtin University international students and spread the great game of AFL. So we're here to try and teach them some skills.
We're just here building the relationship with Fremantle Dockers and Curtin University and educating the multicultural students on how to play the Australian game.
It provides students with the opportunity to enhance their student experience, not only here on Curtin campus, because they actually get to attend two Fremantle Dockers games.
Are you excited about going to see a game?
Yes, so that's why I'm here today.
Now I understand a little bit of the rules and this stuff, and I hope to go to the game and enjoy this and have fun.
Yeah, anytime the Dockers get the ball is a good time to cheer, so we've taught them that one.
So yeah, my dad's from Zimbabwe and he landed in Australia, and the first thing he was told is to find a footy club and enjoy footy. So, you know, I think it's an Australian identity, and you know, it's a great game that people come and that from all walks of life love the game.
I think sport's always a big part of it, like the country and stuff. So no, I love it. It's good.
It was awesome. It was my first experience with AFL because in Brazil we usually just play football, soccer, you know.
Very good. I have a lot of energy. I love it. Oh, I loved it. It was brilliant.
Oh, it was an amazing experience.
It was a lot of fun. The stations were really cool to do.
Yeah, it's kind of complicated because there's so many sports like mixed, but I like it.
I don't really know how the scoring system works. I just know that it involves a lot of running, tackling, and hitting a ball.
Yeah, I love the tackling. What did you think of the Dockers players? Were they good teachers?
Yeah, they were lovely.
Yes, they are, and very handsome too.
Yeah, they're all really helpful. Yeah, good fun, made it really entertaining and yeah, enjoyable.
Everyone had a great time getting involved in a game that most were taking part in for the very first time. Campus safety is an issue gaining worldwide attention, and while here in Perth things are much better than elsewhere, there are important issues we need to take notice of. This was highlighted during the screening of a US film called The Hunting Ground. We had a chat to some of our team after they watched it.
So we've just had a screening of The Hunting Ground, which is a film that is from America and details the American experience of some female college students in relation to sexual assault and rape that occurred to them.
I think it's quite a confronting film, and it definitely does make people feel very emotional, especially if it's something that you have experienced or you know someone that has experienced it. It can definitely hit quite close to home.
So a number of the issues that were raised were to do with the extent to which there's underreporting, and that of course concerns us.
I mean, there's always going to be incidences of underreporting and people not coming forward about it because they're scared about what might happen, and I think that's something that globally still exists no matter what college you're at or university.
You know, my experience across a number of universities is that, you know, we are extraordinarily well placed. Nevertheless, there is always more that we can do. More that we can do to ensure that our students understand where they can go to get help. Our staff can understand what their responsibilities are and where they can go to get help. and just to ensure that all of our campuses are as safe as they possibly can be.
So we have a Safer Communities response team, and that is made up of our housing services, our social workers, our counsellors, our GP, our academic registrar. All of those people are attached to very substantial support services. So that's basically people who can help students in these situations and people who are professionally trained to deal with these matters.
If issues do occur or they feel uncomfortable or harassed in any way, then they must seek support and help, and it is absolutely available.
We have Student Assist. It's not run by students, so it's 100% anonymous. It's for free. You just call up and say, I'd like to speak to Student Assist. You don't need to provide too much detail other than that. And the people who work within Student Assist are all from social work or psychology backgrounds, so they're positioned to help.
I think it's something that isn't really talked about that often. Like you always kind of see stuff about it and there's always things like this, but depending on, I think, where you're from and your background and your upbringing, and even where you went to school, it's not something that is a major topic of discussion a lot of the time, unless something terrible has happened.
Respect and safety are absolutely core to what we do, and we will do everything we can to ensure that we have the absolute highest standards in both of those areas.
There is now a free Safe Zone security app available through the App Store or Google Play. You can find out more by checking out Safety at Curtin on our website. Last year, Curtin announced its partnership with Hockey Australia, putting us in direct connection with hockey players and experts at the highest level, including those headed to the Olympic Games. Many of our faculties have been working with the hockey teams, including sports science, who have been helping them out with our climate chamber.
If you're from a cooler environment or if you're going to compete in a hotter environment, I guess there's two choices. You can go to the place and get used to the heat. You'd be familiar with that when in summer, when the first few weeks you struggle a little bit and then you get used to it. The other option to that is to go into a climate chamber where we can actually control the environmental conditions. So we've got a climate chamber here on campus, and so what we can do is we can crank the temperature up and crank the humidity up, and we can replicate conditions that they might be experiencing. And we can do that to get them used to those conditions, but also to adapt them to those conditions as well to make them perform a bit better. So we've done up a program that's, we've got 4 weeks for most of the squad, 6 weeks for a few of the other guys, where they come in, use our chamber 2 to 3 times a week. And basically it's a program where we go from what we would consider reasonably hot in the low 30 degrees and 60% humidity, and we'll take them all the way through to 38 degrees and 60% humidity by the time they get to the end of that 6-week period. So just like training, we ramp up the stimulus that we give them, and by the end they will be very, very comfortable exercising in very hot conditions, so they'll be ready to go. So we've got our prac students in there, they've got their strength and conditioning coaches as well in there, just to keep an eye on the guys and make sure that they cope okay with the conditions. Particularly for the ones that are newer to the programs, it's definitely a bit of a struggle. Walking into 38 degrees and 60% humidity is challenging any day. It's really rare to have them work in, even with a national program, never mind with an international program. It's amazing that they get that opportunity. And particularly in sports science, where often you really need the opportunities to work with elite sport to get jobs in that industry later on. It's definitely the bit that can kickstart your career, and we find the passionate students that jump onto those opportunities, they're usually the ones that hang around and work hard to get into that industry. So it's an amazing opportunity to be able to work with a national program and such a successful program as well, like the Kookaburras and the Hockey Blues.
It was hot and sticky in the chamber without exercising, so you can just imagine how tough it was for those guys training hard in the heat.
Thank you for joining me here today. I want to ask you a few questions about how your course experience went here at Curtin. Now, you're all within a few months of sort of wrapping up here. how good of a job did Curtin do in preparing you for your next step, whatever that step is?
I think very, very well. I'm currently actually working in marketing already, so I've been working in it for about 9 months now, and it was the fact that Curtin does prepare you so well from the second you step through the door that gave me the opportunity to start working pretty much full-time in my field already.
I think the greatest thing that Curtin has been able to give me is the ability to recognise and reflect on what I've done, because a lot of the times part of our assessment you have to reflect and you have to write about what you've actually learned, where you tie it back. And to me that's the most important thing, because when you actually go into the workforce, everything you do you have to evaluate. And even in the units as you go along, if you're reflecting on what you're learning and what you're absorbing, it means that by the time you get into the workforce, everything you do well and not so well will make you better.
I'd say with all of the units you do in marketing, you're usually put into a group assignment type scenario. In my previous course, which was computer science, we never really had the opportunity to sort of work together as much, collaborate on such a regular basis, and I think that sort of thing is sort of key, working in the real world, sort of getting along with your co-workers, sort of harnessing each other's skills, talents, and
I'd like to hear now on the other side of this, give us the hard news, the critical feedback. What is it in your experience that if you had a do-over and we could help you with that, what would be one of the best things we could do for you?
I think in some classes, some units that you do, they sort of give you a lot of material, and as a student you kind of think, okay, well they've given me all this material, I'll look at it later. And I think that's a huge pitfall, because yeah, you may never ever look at it, or you'll look at it just before a test, or look at it for an assignment, or look at it just before the exam.
Yeah, so what's the lesson for the instructor about that is?
I've had a couple of classes which use a flipped classroom model. So basically they get you to learn everything you need to know online before you go up to a workshop. I found that to be very useful actually. It sort of puts the responsibility of learning on me, and so I'm ready for class. I need to jump online, learn what I need to know, and then show up.
Thank you. How about you?
I have to agree, the flipped classroom is much more engaging, because if you have the initiative to read the material, when you actually go into class and you get to have dialogue around the topic, you learn so much more from it, because you've already reflected and analysed everything, or all the material they've given you, the content, you've gone through it already. So by the time you get to the classroom, the only thing that can happen is more layers get added to your knowledge. And for me, that's the most important thing, is actually being engaged. I find that meeting real people, talking to real clients is always more engaging, and creating a report for somebody is always better than doing an assignment that's going to get marked
So we
by
could
a
do
tutor.
more bringing of real world in, and more responsibility on the learner to get prepared for these deeper conversations that can take place in the classrooms.
I think the biggest thing, touching on engagement, is also like student empowerment. And when you give them the opportunity to control their learning, whether it's the flow that they take information in, the timing that they take the information in, I think that really, it empowers the student. It makes them want to learn. It makes them hungry for knowledge. And I think that's a really powerful thing.
I'd like to thank you all for taking your time out to provide us with feedback. Just like the real world people coming into your classes, it makes such a difference. It's very important for us to hear regularly from the students that are here and how the experience goes and what we should be doing about it. So I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for asking us.
Thank you for having us.
That's it for this episode of Inside Curtin. If you'd like to find out more about anything you've seen, you can visit the Learning for Tomorrow website at www.curtin.edu.au. Thanks for your company, and we'll catch you next time.